Africa, home to the majestic elephants. For thousands of years, the animals have roamed the African Sahara. History shows us the strong bond between elephants and humans. They were traditionally used for transport, lifting heavy materials, and participating in battles. However, in recent years, the elephants have suffered greatly because of the ivory trade and the poaching crisis at the hands of humans. The illegal ivory trade in Africa has a long history, with roots dating back centuries. Here's an overview of how the trade originated and evolved. In 1800, around 26 million elephants roamed Africa. European powers established global trading networks that exploited Africa's natural resources, including ivory. Ivory became a valuable commodity in international trade, and European demand for tusks led to an increased hunting and exploitation of elephant populations. By 1900, shooting elephants on safari became a symbol of Western prowess, leading to widespread use of ivory in products like brushes, pool balls, piano keys, earning it the moniker white gold.
In the 19th and the early 20th centuries, the demand for ivory intensified, driven by the growth of the global economy and increased wealth. This unregulated and often unsustainable hunting of elephants for their ivory had a devastating impact on their populations across Africa as they were decimated, leading to local extinctions in certain regions. By 1979, only 1 million elephants were left in the African Sahara. Concerns about the decline of elephant populations and the impact of the ivory trade on these species led to the establishment of the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, also known as CITES, in 1973. Richard Leakey, the director of Kenya Wildlife Service, convinced the Kenyan president to publicly burn a stockpile of confiscated tusks.
We will burn our ivory.
It can be tackled. I think it's going to take time. It's complex. There's a lot of issues like corruption.
Never again.
Despite being impoverished, Kenya took this huge leap, showing elements of instrumentalism, since the government was ready to forego the economic benefit they would have gained from selling the ivory. Instead, this dramatic event gained international sentiment, and the ivory trade was banned worldwide in 1989 by CITES to curb the decline of the elephant population.
The ban initially led to decreased poaching and illegal trade. There has been a resurgence in recent years due to increased demand, particularly from Asian markets. The dynamics of the ivory trade are deeply intertwined with the socio-economic landscape, especially in China, which is currently the fastest growing economy globally. The surge in consumer demand, driven by the rise of the middle class, has created a marketplace where ivory is not just a commodity, but a symbol of affluence and cultural connection. Astonishingly, a National Geographic study revealed that a staggering 80% of China's middle class owns at least one piece of ivory, with 84% expressing intentions to purchase more soon. This high demand caused ivory prices to skyrocket. Suddenly, a supply gap appeared in the market. Poachers jumped upon this opportunity. Thousands of elephants were poached and illegally smuggled to China. However, law enforcement agencies also succeeded in confiscating and stockpiling in home African countries like Kenya and Tanzania. These African countries started lobbying for special legal sales of ivory stockpiles to generate funds for local development and conservation efforts. CITES allowed the sales of 2 stockpiled ivory in 2007 and 2011 when pressured by South African and Asian countries. This allowed the illegal trade of ivory to get sanctioned.
This sale was a highly debated and a controversial decision. Proponents argued that controlled ivory sales could reduce illegal poaching by meeting the demand for ivory through legal channels. They believed that the proceeds from these sales could be used for conservation efforts and benefit local communities. But this was far from true. This created confusion in retail markets as to what was legal and illegal ivory, and presented a great cover-up for poachers to obtain and sell more illegal ivory. The International Fund for Animal Welfare says that in 2013, only 16% of the ivory sold in China was legal. Fueled by the ivory trade, around 15,000 animals are killed each year for their tusks. That's an average of 40 a day. In fact, we estimate that we have lost over 80% of the planet's African elephants in the past century.
In the case of ivory trade in Africa, institutional analysis will help us understand how various institutions, both at national and international levels, influence trade dynamics. Not only did CITES establish a framework for controlling legal international trade, but many countries established formal legal frameworks, which included regulations on poaching, trafficking, and illegal possession of ivory, as well as penalties for offenders. Wildlife management agencies and authorities in African countries are critical in enforcing wildlife protection laws and managing protected areas. National parks and wildlife conservation agencies such as the Amboseli National Park in Kenya and Selous Reserve in Tanzania often have specialized anti-poaching units tasked with patrolling and protecting elephants from poaching.
Organized crime cases, and in some cases, militant groups have become involved in illegal ivory trade. They exploit political instability, weak law enforcement, and corruption in Africa to engage in poaching, trafficking, and smuggling activities. Informal institutions such as corruption and governance practices influence the effectiveness of formal institutions. Corruption within law enforcement, customs, and political circles undermines efforts to combat the illegal ivory trade. Informal institutions within local communities play a vital role. The relationship between communities and wildlife, as well as their dependence on natural resources, can shape attitudes towards conservation and poaching through awareness campaigns.
The illegal ivory trade in Africa is often driven by power dynamics that include various actors at different levels, including poachers, organized crime groups, corrupt officials, and international buyers who manipulate the system for personal gain. Poaching network and criminal organizations wield considerable power regarding resources and the ability to evade law enforcement. Corrupt officials within wildlife management agencies, customs, and law enforcement are bribed to turn a blind eye to the poaching activities or facilitate the transportation of ivory, such as East African exports of agricultural produce and timber smugglers used to smuggle ivory out of African cities like Dar es Salaam to Hong Kong. 50,000 containers arrive in Hong Kong and fewer than 1% are investigated. This provides an excellent cover for ivory smuggling. In the African region, because of political instability and weak governance, powerful individuals and groups take advantage of the chaos to engage in illegal activities, including poaching and smuggling. Wealthy individuals and criminal syndicates in these markets have the economic power to drive demand and pay high prices for ivory products because weak institutional frameworks add to the struggle to enforce laws and protect wildlife effectively. The illegal ivory trade is often part of larger transnational criminal networks. These networks leverage their power and influence to move ivory across borders, often taking advantage of loopholes in the international law and weak border control systems. For example, Chinese diplomats have immunity and they use it to smuggle ivory from Tanzania since they can bypass checks in their diplomatic planes.
While we're on the topic, let's discuss the welfare aspect of Africa's illegal ivory trade that is primarily concerned with the impact on well-being of individuals, communities, and the broader ecosystems. The illegal ivory trade has severe consequences for the welfare of the environment and the biodiversity because the elephant population is rapidly declining. This impacts the balance of the ecosystems and disrupts other species' welfare. Local communities in proximity to wildlife habitats are directly affected by the illegal trade. The activities of poaching networks can lead to increased human-wildlife conflict, endangering the safety and well-being of community members. Behind every ivory trinket made and sold is a trail of human suffering and exploitation in Africa. Elephants are culturally significant in many African societies. Illegal trade not only threatens the physical well-being of these animals, but also erodes their cultural heritage. The loss of elephants profoundly affects the welfare of communities that have long coexisted with these majestic creatures. Wildlife, including elephants, is a significant attraction for the tourism industry in many African countries. The illegal ivory trade harms the welfare of wildlife, but also has negative repercussions for the tourism sector, impacting local economies and livelihoods that are dependent on tourism.
Now for the historical point of view. European colonization and global trade networks in the 1800s set the stage for the exploitation of elephant ivory. The existing infrastructure and demand for ivory created a difficult path to deviate from. Even with later conservation efforts, the significance of ivory in faith and its symbolism of wealth leads to a path of dependency of higher consumer demand. The ivory trade is grounded in elements of historicism. The initial decimation of elephant populations in the 19th and early 20th centuries continues to impact the recovery. Events like the CITES ban and legal ivory sales have led to confusion in retail markets and provided an excellent cover-up for continued poaching.
Ivory trade in Africa is a complex issue with deep roots in both formal and informal institutions. Addressing the challenge requires a multi-pronged approach that tackles weak enforcement, economic pressures, global demand, and public awareness. Only through concerted efforts at the national and international levels, including strengthening legal frameworks, fostering alternative livelihoods, and promoting public education, can we effectively combat the illegal ivory trade and secure a future for African elephants. The stakes are high, and the time for action is now. Thank you for watching. This is my team, signing out.
यार क्या हो गया कंसर्न नहीं बोला